one of the things that we talked about was this kind of team dynamic. And I remember when we started out, like we had all these like super smart people, like, Sasha was there. And coincidentally, I think that when I look back at my kind of personal journey as CEO, I wanted to overcompensate for my lack of kind of education. And I'm like, because I was insecure about my knowledge or my abilities. And I'm like, and I went and got like Sasha from Harvard, you're from Harvard, Renata from Harvard, Edith from Stanford. And, when we look back to those, those early days, we had all these brilliant people. But we ended up, having probably not the strongest team dynamic initially, which we built kind of later on. But I'd love for you to have some reflections about that and just kind of share your lessons and learnings about kind of team, because you evolved into an amazing leader. And I don't think that any of us were great kind of leaders in the beginning, because we were all just first timers and a lot of stuff. Talk a little bit more about what were the realizations that you had and kind of, how you developed that kind of team environment. And, we used to talk about vulnerability all the time. So sorry to bring that back up because it was a common thread over the years, but maybe you could explore that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. It's never enough talking about vulnerability because it's not something that I believe we solve, like the lack of vulnerability, but it's kind of a condition that we have and that we have to manage. And especially during crazy times, under stress, it's hard for you to remain vulnerable at all times, right? Because we kind of go back to defensiveness. So it's never enough. It's something that you have to manage. That's how I see. But back in the day, as you said, of course, everyone had the best of intentions and everyone wanted to deliver. At that stage, and I'm living it right now, it's very clear to everyone in the startup that there's an intrinsic pressure, right? The entropy is big in that system. We have to deliver. So it's kind of a natural environment, and it somehow it pushes people, everyone at the same time. So everyone is excited and nerves are all around, right? That's how I see it. But everyone has the best of the intention. So the point is, given that everyone acts with a higher level of intensity, you're going to have both moments of positive explosion and negative, right? So it happened. I remember I joined in 2012. Sasha joined in 2012. You mentioned Irit and Renata, they joined in 2013. So in a time frame of maybe 12 months, the executive team that was you and two co-founders, Diego and Thomas, it transformed into a team of 7 people. Half had just joined, outsiders with different profiles. So it was almost like a merger, right? An inorganic move in which you have to fuse everyone into a team that you want people to work collaboratively, but there's just not enough trust among all of the teams for us to, especially when you are not experienced, and communication is not one of the abilities that I would say most people have at that stage of our professional lives. So it is expected to have friction. It is expected to have not a very good collaborative environment. So yes, in the beginning, it was hard, and you suffered, and everyone suffers, right? Like all of the leaders do at some point. So back in 2013, it was hard, and I think 14 was even harder because we go through different stages. In those stages, different challenges surface, and so it's very hard. So having said that, to me personally, I of course, it's not one moment that you realize. It's a process that it's an ongoing process of becoming more mature and understanding the team dynamics and leadership and what drives trust building. So it's a process. But there was one moment that really stuck in my mind when we were having those team dynamics, like those conversations, those exercises. And it was really strong in my mind when I realized that, and it's so silly and maybe so dumb, but we had a few dynamics that helped me realize that a few behaviors that I had were definitely not acceptable by other people, but there were other behaviors that other people had that they thought were completely normal and okay to have, that I thought that were completely unacceptable in terms of communication, in terms of transparency, governance, etc. And it's not me and other people, but everyone else, right? When we had that beautiful map of 7 people with different behaviors, different thoughts, that some people had a few, but there was no one single profile in terms of behaviors and expectations, etc., that matched other. There were conflicts among all of us. And that moment made me think, hey, this is not gonna work at all if we don't work in both aspects, being more tolerant to behaviors we think are not acceptable, but also being more empathetic and really forcing ourselves to change our behaviors, right? Maybe this is hard to explain, but I can give one more example that really helped me solidify one aspect of my leadership that I thought was critical for the successful that we had over time. That was when I succeeded you, and we were, before that succession, we worked for a few years in the process, right? And I remember there was one moment when I thought, hey, most of my peers are this type A leader like me. And when I succeed Brian, they're going to be reporting to me. And if any of them succeeded Brian and I had to report to them, and if they had the same leadership style that I have right now, I would not accept that leadership and I would quit. So if they have a very similar leadership style to mine, then it means that they're all gonna quit if I keep my style. So I'm either gonna have to bring a whole new team, or I'll have to change. That was a very humbling moment, and so basically it was maybe 2 years after I joined Viva Real, around that time, and it was really a moment that it became to me a priority to work on my leadership style, because otherwise, hey, it's not going to work. And it's not that I would be focusing on my personal success, because of course, then it's something that you realize pretty early in the process of becoming a manager, is that by yourself you go nowhere, right? So you really need the team. So it's something that helped me properly allocate time to invest towards my own development, because it was just a critical ingredient to the success of the company.